Hello, friends. A long time ago, the people of God were in slavery in Egypt, and that was not okay. The one true God of the universe was going to rescue his people, and the way that he did that, it's a long story, but towards the end of that story, he told them, his people, take a lamb, watch it to make sure that it's a good lamb, a perfect lamb. And then he said, sacrifice it and put the blood of that lamb on the frames and the top of your door. He said, and I'm going to go through Egypt and something terrible is going to happen. But when I see that blood of that lamb that was sacrificed, then I will pass over your house. And the bad thing is not going to happen to you. Well, it worked. God's people were safe. And the people that had enslaved them, the bad thing happened to them, and they didn't want God's people there anymore. So they chased them out, so fast, in fact, that they didn't have even time for their bread to rise. Some of you don't know what that means. Some of you do. So I'm baking some bread right now, and it's bread without yeast in it. Some of you know a little bit about that. Most of the bread that I eat has yeast in it. Okay, and I like it. It's good. It tastes good. But yeast makes it puffy. If you look at this, it's really flat. Okay, and I made this dough yesterday, and it still hasn't risen up at all. Okay, so it's not going to, because there's no leaven in it at all. All right. So then I fried up in this pan here, and I've got it. But this is unleavened bread, is what it's called. Yeast, leaven, it's the same thing. But we realize this. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 5, don't you know that a little yeast works its way through the whole batch? Okay, it doesn't take much yeast in order for the whole batch to be filled with it. And Paul says, don't you know that a little bit does that? Okay, he says, get rid of the old yeast so that you may be a new unleavened batch. Now, what does he mean by that? I think what he means by that, because in the Bible, yeast is a picture of sin. Now, again, I like puffy bread, all right? But yeast is this picture of sin because just a little bit of it in your life and you work it into there and it just works its way through the whole loaf, and before you know it, your whole life is full of sin, just like that whole loaf of bread is full of yeast. But Paul says, if yeast is sin, then we want to be this. We want to be bread without yeast. We want to be life without sin as much as we can. But Paul's not done yet. He says, because Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. What does that mean? Just like that Passover lamb was sacrificed so that the bad things wouldn't happen to those people and something good happened to them instead, so it is with Jesus. Something bad happened to him. Okay, his death on the cross. He was sacrificed at Passover time even, because they celebrate that festival year after year. At Passover time, Jesus was sacrificed. And because that bad thing happened to him, something very good happened to us. And that is that we do not need to be separated from God because of our sin. So I like to celebrate this time of year with a little bit of bread without yeast in it, because it reminds me of what Jesus was, a life without sin, and what he's calling me toward, a life without sin. And it reminds me also that Jesus, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. This Friday, this week, is called Good Friday. And in it, we mark the sacrifice of Jesus, his death on the cross. Maybe you look at that and say, that's a funny name for it. Why would you say that's good? I mean, isn't that bad? Wasn't it bad for Jesus? It's a good observation. But because that bad thing happened to Jesus, something very good happened for you and me. Because Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. So let's celebrate with a new batch. A batch without yeast. Let's keep the festival, the Passover, Paul says. Not with the old bread of leaven and with malice and wickedness, but with unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So as you think about that this week, as you think about Jesus' sacrifice for our sins, maybe as you taste some bread this week too, whether it has leaven in it or not, I don't care. But think about that. Let's live life without the yeast of the bad things in it. And let's live life with sincerity and truth, because Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed.